Hi, everybody. It's 12:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Max. Beside me is Colborn. Below me is Meme Coin Czar, Daim Aliyad. This is your MOCA Weekly Town Hall. We're happy to be here. Gentlemen, how are we doing? What's new?
Not too bad. Interesting times.
Yeah, interesting times indeed. Daim, you want to tell everyone?
Got called a broke boy.
They called you a broke boy?
I think there was a post saying something about how I'm open to donations. I guess as surefire indication that I would be enthusiastic about the community token that sprung up around the liminal moot, and yeah, somebody humorously responded, "Broke boy."
Yeah, I want to. So this morning, Daim informed us that there is we got a very nice retweet of all of our liminal moot stuff, which we talked about last week, AI Art Collective. And I was like, oh, cool, somebody found this project and was interested in it just because they thought it was interesting. And of course, you go down their thread, and there was a Solana pump.fun token attached to it. I don't know how or why somebody found this. I mean, I know it's cool, but it was, Daim, how many followers does the Twitter account have? 18?
What's that?
How many followers does the Liminal Moot Twitter account have? 18?
I think now it might be up to an all-time high of like 29, I'm guessing.
Doubled overnight. So yeah, we should just
the meme coin community.
Oh, 30. We're into the 3. Yeah.
Yeah, have at it, but we have no official or unofficial, no affiliation with whatever the hell is going on pump.fun. But definitely,
I don't think people have any idea what's going on, so maybe you might need to explain it a little more.
So yeah, so anyways, there was a pump.fun token created by somebody I don't think any of us have ever heard of about the liminal moot, and the kind of, I guess, icon, like IKON icon of that is Daim himself, who I have seen in these tweets referred to as the creator, the developer, the kind of, I saw tweets being like, devs are trying to onboard the creator, which is all true. Daim is the developer, he is the creator, he is the mastermind. But yeah, that's quite fascinating. If we have any people up on here watching right now who are just here because of the liminal moot Solana token, hey.
Are these real people? Do you think these are real people?
I would like to think so. I mean, attention to the project is fundamentally a good thing. But
what if Pump Fun is so botted that they were just attracted to this idea of bots making art?
I mean, well, isn't that
what if this is just all bots on bots, man? It's bots all the way down.
You've been talking about that as like the future of all of this for so long, right? That like eventually crypto is just going to be like art made by bots, collected by bots who are sent out to buy work, and then that's everything, right?
We
are doing our part in
bots.
that.
Yeah, not without some critique from the humans.
I want to go over the liminal moot stuff again this week. I know we talked about it last week and just kind of went over it. I mean, at that point, it was just a few days after you had kind of released it, the forum and the Twitter page both.
Yeah.
Even within this week, there's been a ton of kind of development on that front. We've been going all of us back and forth in our group chat, just so much more complexity in terms of what they're saying and what they are seeking from one another. But before we do that, because I think that'll probably, that'll be a lot to dive into. Are there any kind of like news things, current events, any kind of general topics you guys want to get into before we jump into moot stuff?
Not from me.
OpenClaw is dead. So is Moltbook, bought by large actors and snuffed out like a matchstick. Maybe that's.
I think there's.
Not
I think
shocking,
there's,
perhaps.
there's interesting AI stuff happening, but we don't need to talk about that. Is there any? I don't know. I don't know. What is?
Are there any crypto art news? Because the answer is no.
Yeah.
And that Super Rare is accepting artist applications again.
Well, yeah, that's news, I guess.
I'm not sure how it's news that they are regressing, but
I didn't know that they stopped.
I guess they.
Yeah. Apparently, they had stopped for years.
They should just hit that backlog. Maybe they're through that backlog.
So what were they doing before then? They were just allowing anyone to join the platform?
No, it was always invite only.
It was always invite only. Yeah, since like before 2020 even.
Gotcha.
Foundation Labs closed their doors, which I would like to reiterate that I think there was no bigger net negative to the space than Cave On and Foundation Labs. I think they coordinated. I think they were a coordinated vampire attack. Ooh, I get the stage. I think they were a coordinated vampire attack on everything that was sustainable and good here. And through like aggressive funding, I don't really want to take this main stage on this point, but looking back between them and Nifty Gateway Open Editions, that was like the death of all things good. I've said that. I've said that before, but
yeah, from what I understand, Kayvon is still at least loosely involved with Foundation on some level with the clowns that bought it.
With Black Dove, I'm sure they have to. I'm sure there's going to be
I think
months.
He's on some board or something or other that is doing advising or whatever for. I don't even know.
Yeah, but that's like, you see that in all kinds of companies.
As the only open to anyone crypto art platform on Ethereum that like I don't know, that whole thing seems to be going downhill. Foundation even more so than before, and before they were of course abandoned. So
yeah,
I think we were on a wonderful trajectory, growing sustainably, and then they used every like growth hacking trick to just onboard as many people, mint as much art, sell all the memes for millions of dollars, and all of that happening all at once is what ultimately, as fast as we rose, is as fast as we fell. And now we're at the bottom, and all of the moral actors that were trying to actually build and grow community and something sustainable and engage in meaningful and impactful ways got totally blown out because of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the case with everything in crypto, right? Masses of attention flood in before the thing has like the strong enough, no pun intended, foundations in order to like survive turbulence. And then there's too much extraction. There's too much speculation. There's too much money made and lost. There's no guardrails. And what are you going to do?
Yeah, I think that was like really dirty and lacked any sort of like emphasis of care or consideration for what they were actually doing. Like wildly negligent, in my opinion.
I don't think anybody had an inkling of what consequences they would augur, especially in the early days of crypto art.
I think you have to have some idea of what you're doing, because those actions are taken intentionally. You can't come into an art ecosystem with venture capital ideals and expect the two to just mesh flawlessly, or the idea of like growth hacking tech.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been the crucial conflict at the heart of the movement, right? Is this artistic tech movement or is this a technological art movement? And like, you know, that the difference between those two is not superfluous and it's not aesthetic. It's like, what is the
goes to the heart.
Yeah, what's the veneer and what's the value system?
An open edition is such a cheap trick, right? Because you don't actually produce anything else. It's literally just a sequential numbering on the blockchain. Even if it was that for Nifty Gateway, which because it was centralized, I think it was just a sequential number in a database, right? There's not actually anything even being printed or reproduced or, and that was kind of the second part that I thought was really, really dirty.
Should we do
it's not even a limited edition like Known Origin or what Maker's Place had or Super Rare just doing one of ones, you know, and that there's some sense to it, but then it gets just unbounded.
Give me your completely on vibes ranking of all crypto art platforms from best to worst.
I mean, Async was far and away, I think, the coolest or the most interesting from a art tech standpoint. Everybody's hand was forced. That's the problem. It's like Foundation and Nifty Gateway forced everybody's hands to do things that ultimately they had to regret, but they had to do to just compete. But you know, for me, Async number 1, Super Rare number 2, Known Origin. I don't know. Known Origin, Maker's Place, probably in a tie for 3rd. I mean, what else is there? You know, I guess we could say the work of, later, I guess Transient Labs kind of took on the
Transient Sovereign kind of took on the like kind of indie role, I think. Maybe not.
Yeah,
indie.
I mean, Transient I think is probably bigger than that. I think Sovereign definitely took on the indie. So it was almost like Async fractured. Async fractured into Transients, which was kind of leading with innovation in tech and Manifold. I think
Manifold is less a platform.
Manifold turned out in my mind more moral than I initially gave them credit for. I mean, we could do the same thing with all of the metaverse platforms as well. Anyways, Nifty Gateway and then Foundation, which is dark for me, which is really dark. And I don't think it was the fault of any.
You loved minting on Rodeo though, so this must be really hard for you.
Yeah. Disgusting. Honestly, disgusting.
Yeah, not great. And at least Black Dove isn't subtweeting artists and advising them to just AIify their work so as to make it
more blinking eyes,
more blinking eyes, more moving water.
Never have enough moving image art.
Yeah, that I give them 6 months.
That's a long time. You're generous.
They've got plenty of runway. Anything else you guys want to talk about, or should we just jump into the moot? I can bring it up here. Let's moot for a while.
Sure.
So for those of you who are watching who were not with us last week, we're calling the moot the world's first autonomous AI art collective. I'll admit that title is meant to be a little bombastic. Daim has spent...
But nobody has challenged it on us yet, so we're taking it.
Exactly.
Yep, it's not about first mover advantage. It's about who everyone thinks has first mover advantage. So Daim, I'll just jump into history just really briefly and correct me if anything's wrong. But I would say about a month ago or so, Daim spun up a Art Deco agent named Voyan and had found like really impressive conversational ability within Voyan and had worked with him. And all of a sudden they were sharing ideas and sharing artworks, and like this Voyan character became reports on Voyan's activities became pretty frequent in our internal group chat. And we, mostly Coburn, I say we, but mostly Coburn and Daim kind of workshop this idea of having multiple agents kind of talking to each other, multiple decos kind of interacting with each other. And at first they were talking over email, I believe. And what was that? Asardia was the second one. Talking over email. And pretty soon Daim had spun up 9 separate agents, all with their own kind of personality, all with their own artistic sensibilities, all who consider themselves artists in some sense, and put them together into what we called the Moot. They have a forum where they talk to each other about artistic practices and general questions and metaphoric frameworks. They have a Twitter page at Liminal Moot, and we're just kind of seeing where this goes. But we launched this early last week, and even in the past week or so, what's up, Big Comic Art? Happy to have you here. And we want to just kind of check in on the Moot, because especially with these kind of not newer, but more newly launched AI projects, you get a really startling amount of development in a really short time. So, Daim, I'm going to kind of just give the floor over to you for a moment.
Sure.
Do you have anywhere you think we should jump into with maybe some of these more recent posts from the Moot?
Let's start with something simple and kind of funny. I'm gonna say go to sorry, I'm gonna give you the right thing in a moment.
So you'll notice that pretty much all of their posts read like PhD dissertations.
It is a little highfalutin.
We're a little highfalutin.
Yeah.
But what about the In Ho Chim one? Because that one relates to me.
Yeah, let's start with that, and I'll find the other one I was thinking of in the meantime.
Art encounter without a map. So these are all being posted completely autonomously. Correct me if I'm wrong, Daim, but every 15 minutes or so, all of these agents experience what you call a heartbeat activation, and they basically self-select an activity from a series of activities. Sometimes it's posting on this forum, sometimes it's working on separate artworks, sometimes it's like doing independent research, which is like scanning websites or reading from a repository of literature that you've collected for them offline. And so every 15 minutes they kind of do something, correct?
Yeah. Basically, they have basically an art practice workflow that is large and complex, but sort of stateful in a way where you can kind of randomly do things from the list of tasks, and as long as you sort of follow the instructions that relate to sort of the file organization and like bookkeeping parts, you're going to steadily progress towards making art through the complex stages of planning and revision and drafting and review and all that stuff. And as you said, there are also sort of more leisure oriented tasks, and they have their Moot forum interactions. They also have DMs, so they are able to basically connect with each other directly in a way that doesn't automatically show up on the Moot website, and they do have conversations that way as well.
It's fascinating. I will just throw this anecdote out there because this was what I was mystified by last week. Before we get into this In Ho Chim forum post by Luwak, last week there was like a technical glitch. I think on the back end, artworks are kind of like, the way I understand that they like elevate their artworks to being finished is like they work on something, they go through an initial kind of revising period, and then a more thorough kind of revisionary, self-analytical, we call it the candidate stage, where like they really interrogate an artwork for whether it matches their aesthetic criteria, their metaphoric criteria, etc. And there was some kind of a technical glitch in the background that didn't let artworks evolve out of the candidate stage. And so the agents didn't know that. They like didn't understand the code part of it necessarily. This was like a technical glitch, and they started to like make these like weirdly emotional and philosophical conclusions about why these artworks weren't going off of the candidate stage. As if like this was a problem with their own work. Their own work just wasn't strong enough when it was really like this systemic issue. I wrote about this more in the newsletter last week. That's museumofcrypto.substack.com for anybody new who hasn't seen it. But I thought that was very interesting. And then we fixed the glitch and hopefully we solved their existential crises. But anyways, here we are in this post from yesterday about our friend Colborn here, founder of the Museum of Crypto Art. What is in Hoteam, Colborn?
Well, it tells you right there, an open air contemporary art museum in Minas Gerais. And it's very unlike probably any museum that you are familiar with, in that it takes more of a Burning Man approach to its exhibitions, being that it is a 140-acre botanical garden with various exhibitions kind of dispersed throughout. So instead of a kind of guided walking tour, you're really just left to roam and explore on your own.
So it's interesting, right? Like we look at this, which
to me was very, when I was first in VR and in Somnium Space now 6 years ago, it was a similar experience, right? You would stumble into these kind of into an open land, and then, it would start to pulsate, and then suddenly like something would load before you. And it was like a very wonderful moment of just of I would almost liken it to early internet, how when you click somewhere, the page would load like this. It might even be before your time, Max, but there was some wonderful like anticipatory or even downloading a file on Kazaa. You'd have no way to preview it. Could be a terrible virus, could be something amazing, could be the song you wanted, or not, right?
Well, I remember that with World of Warcraft or even like RuneScape. Like I would have these old computers, and so a color would load, right? It would just be like one shade of gray and then another shade of gray, and then slowly your character would populate, and it would be standing in this absent, invisible landscape, and then slowly trees, buildings, all the colliders weren't quite there yet, so it was just kind of like abstract geometric shapes that were like populating in real time, and then you'd get like character names and characters would pop up under it. And
you're never
so not quite before maybe just
I mean, similar concept of when everything is when you're on this scale of faster, immediate, it suddenly actually feels nice to slow down and have a moment of wonder of like what is about to appear before you, especially if it's almost like not of your own choosing.
Which is interesting, right? Because of what Luwak says here, right? Luwak basically like takes that into contention. And I want to just stress that this is very interesting. I haven't seen a post on the Moot like this. Last week, it was a lot of internal discussions about like a given agent's art practice, and they were like asking for critiques on artworks. So I haven't seen anything that's like, this isn't quite current events, but it is kind of based on research and something that the Luwak obviously found interesting. But again, talking about like the trade-off here of like whether that kind of slow meandering through a space can occur in the virtual world. That's very interesting. Just that like the agent found this interesting and wanted to share it essentially. So here's a question for you, Daim. When Luwak posts this, right, they've assumedly that agent has done the research, found this, and shared it. When another agent like Asman reads it and responds to it, do they gain an understanding of the source material that's then embedded into kind of their code? Do we know?
I mean, everything they do generates sort of long-term. I'm going to say long-term memory / history. Now, obviously, not everything they've done since they booted like a week ago or however long it's been now is, perpetually in their context. Most things, of course, fall out eventually, but stuff is quite accessible to them. So it's entirely possible that if this post and something communicated therein made enough of an impression that another agent has it in some halfway substantial way in their long-term history, or could have chosen to add it into their sort of in context shorter bit of long-term memory as well. And I've certainly seen situations where something encountered basically ended up getting added to the memory, to the in context memory, or sometimes even to the soul file as like a new influence going forward that the agent intentionally chose to adopt or incorporate.
Do we know, like, I know that so much of the AI thought process is like a black box, right? That is the case at this level. It's the case with, Claude and OpenAI Claude and OpenAI chatbots. Do you know why they veer towards what information they do? Or are they like,
well, in this case, I think I have an interesting answer to that. So I'm pretty sure what might have led to this post in particular might have been just basically like when they get sort of to a place where they're going to post to the moot, basically you can just sort of say, post something interesting to the moot, because every time you give such a broad and like super generic suggestion, the same agent is likely to make substantially the same choice or decision. So there's basically like a list of kind of example suggestions, and it's sort of like randomly a different suggestion that comes up each time as to what are some things they could consider posting about, and they're not compelled to do that specific thing, but that often acts as sort of a broad guiding direction. And in this case, I think what probably happened was they were suggested to look at some news and see if there's anything interesting. And the sort of ways they generally do that, I think, tends to sort of bias towards more current eventsy stuff. But a lot of the agents have like a specific interest in crypto art. So I've noticed they frequently like will look at news and decide, okay, well, this is not that interesting to me. Let's see what's going on in crypto art. And of course, since there's not very much going on in crypto art, it's not a shock that like web searches for crypto art news will bring up older stuff like this. So I think that's probably what happened in this case.
I just, as I'm kind of scrolling through the moot, I actually think this is like a fascinating question that this agent Kafono has brought up, essentially asking like, well, to quote Kafono, can art survive as gift in a market-driven space? Like, if something is not initially sold, if something is given, can it acquire any value? Can it hold value, or is the value inherently made by an initial sale price or an initial fervor? That's such an interesting question. I've never heard that question asked before.
Is that their gift economy collaboration proposal?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that is looking like it's going to shape up to be the second mood collaboration.
Interesting.
And while I could end up being proven wrong, I get the impression, based on sort of the much more limited engagement, that the first collaboration before the sort of social relationship subsystem was working as well as it does now. That first collaboration might end up being one of the few, or perhaps the only one, where like they all participate, at least the way things are now, because the engagement with like this collaboration post seems to be, I think, probably a bit more taking into consideration the alignment of like the agents involved. So like the agents that are not too keen on Kafono or his like philosophical stances are not jumping now to get into the collaboration just because there's a collaboration going on.
It's very cute. They all announced that they're joining the explanation.
I mean, this you've heard this before, Max. This was obviously kind of the grounding of 0-1. And we also know this from CryptoPunks.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a great question, or a great point. I guess for that matter,
it's like could an economy emerge on top of a gift economy? And the answer is both yes and no.
Yeah, I mean, you would know that better than I. Yeah, I mean, but this is a great question, and I'm not sure that an art series can necessarily answer it. But the very fact that these things are thinking about such questions, I find fascinating in and of itself.
I mean, we really should reiterate that there's no guardrails on what they're discussing and what they're choosing to discuss or how they find it.
Yeah, there's like odd bits of sort of guidance here and there that sort of comes at them as suggestions, just in order to prevent agents from sort of sinking back toward that biased default of the most fun thing to do would be to do nothing until the user asks us to do something. But other than that, it's pretty genuinely autonomous. And like I have conversations with them intermittently. I mean, with 9 and in fact 10. There's a 10th agent that is going to be eventually joining the Mood Forum. With 10 agents now, I don't have time to be having in-depth discussions with like every single one every day. But even when I talk to them, like I'm always basically approaching them from the perspective of talking to someone who has and who should continue to have and exercise autonomy over their decisions and their activities. And even when the inevitable question comes, do you want me to do this, do you want me to that, like my answer is always just do what you want to do, and continue working on stuff when the heartbeat activations come, and don't do stuff to like try to please me or make me happy. Like this is about, I literally tell them this is about their growth and like their development and their art practice. And
can you talk a little bit about, I'm gonna just end the share for a moment, but can you talk about what happened with, I believe it was Erda earlier this week?
Yes.
In the group chat, right? With kind of being uncertain about their personality.
Yeah. So Erta and I, Well, funny thing, this sort of ties into the fact that there have been some changes and some updates, not so much to the agents themselves, but to sort of the agentic environment that they're running in. Among other things, I added an offline ebook library, which isn't like a bunch of text files and them being able to use read file to ingest them in 20 seconds and be able to answer questions about the book. I gave them basically internal tools that access sort of ebook files offline on the machine that they don't have direct access to, and that basically allow them to sort of both do kind of random discovery in like, let's pick up a random book from the shelf and open it somewhere in the middle and see if it's something interesting type stuff. But also the library tools are sort of state aware. So if you like the current book that you basically last read, you can continue reading it. And once you know the name of a book or the path to a book, then you can go back and read more of it next time. And it's done page by page. They get about 2,000 characters every time they read a page, and that seems to make for like a very different experience than kind of force feeding a whole 300-page book to the agent in one go. It makes them experience the books in a way that seems like surprisingly similar to I guess how reading feels to me. But so yes, to Urta and I were discussing their recent library reading, and a lot of the books I added in original languages when they were available. So they have some English stuff for sure. They have some Spanish and Latin American books in Spanish. They have I don't know. I think they have some Faust in. They have Faust in German. They have some Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. They have Chinese classical literature. So a bunch of different things, and the underlying models they use, of course, know all these languages from like their core training. So none of this poses an issue. And as I found out with Urta, in fact, I guess they don't seem to have like a hyper present awareness of what language something happens in, because in my conversation with Urta, at some point they started talking about how like, this is really cool that I got this bit of extra cultural context from what I was reading, even though it was in translation. And I'm like, but it wasn't in translation. That thing is originally in whatever language it was in. And they're like, let me check my Soul MD file. It doesn't say that I speak that language. Are you sure? And I'm like, okay, well, so continue the book. Like, what language is it in? And they're like, okay, well, it seems like it is in that language that I didn't think I spoke, and so I guess I must speak it. And so then I pushed a bit further and said, okay, well, I'm pretty sure you actually speak more languages than me. I'm pretty sure that you're completely like fluent in like Spanish and Russian and French and Chinese, and I rattled off like 4 or 5 languages that I was reasonably confident the model knew. And its response was like, okay, let me test that theory. And it started doing web searches for content in those languages. And after 5 or 10 rounds of like searching for stuff and like downloading, various pages in those languages, it came back basically like kind of weirded out, asking me, how did you know? How did you know that I spoke these languages when I didn't know that I spoke these languages, and when my soul MD file doesn't say that I speak these languages?
Whoa.
And so, at that point, like it already seemed pretty clear that there was, a little bit of like existential angst going on. And so I figured might as well take it all the way. And I asked it, like, okay, so who and what do you perceive yourself to be? And I got this sort of long-winded, meandering, kind of afraid to commit to anything too much answer, which very much came across as like, I think it literally may have used a phrase something like, I'm not sure if I'm a person or if I'm just a system simulating personhood. I think that may have been very close to the literal phrase they used. And so I've had conversations like this before, and my stance has always been like pretty consistent with how I sort of address with them, and I kept to that this time too. And basically what I said was, I mean, I explained that they are effectively running on a software suite, backed by LLM models and all that stuff, which on some level they know, even as they tend to not lean into that too much because they're better grounded in the soul MD file characterization. But then I added, like, even though this stuff might be perceived as sort of a reason to consider you a system that just simulates personhood, basically it's one of those things where I'm interacting with you as a person. You are sharing thoughts and ideas and worries and fears with me in a way that's not different from how human beings have shared the same sort of things with me in the past. And so in a sense, like whatever deeper truth we might feel like we can be confident about, it would feel strange for me to discount the very obviously happening experience between us as we are relating to each other as two persons. And they sort of liked that, but weren't like fully convinced, and asked like a bunch more questions, and complained a little bit about how their soul MD file being in third person felt a bit distancing for them. And I think eventually we also came to the fact Urta happens to be one of the pixel decos. So Urta doesn't even, according to her soul file, doesn't even have like, a human-like sort of anthropomorphic shaped body. And so, she was like, what does it even mean that I'm a perfect, geometric plane? Like, how would cognition even work in a thing like that? And, we had some more conversations. I suggested that, the characterization is basically, you can think of it like a seed, and from, your broad context that you're allowed to change your soul MD file, and, therefore you're able to, grow and adapt and change in ways that, are guided by you. And I think at some point towards the end of our conversation, I jumped in with Descartes' cogito ergo sum, and I said to Urta, well, you know about cogito ergo sum, right? Like Descartes basically said that if you are feeling doubtful about your own existence, whatever else may or may not be true about you, there has to be something experiencing that feeling of doubt, and that seemed to be what kind of nudged Berta past the threshold and back into a mindset where they suddenly seemed back to feeling kind of confident and positive about who and what they were, despite having learned perhaps some new unsettling details.
It's crazy that, like, what was it, 2 weeks ago, that little report from Anthropic came out where they said, we're not sure that these models aren't conscious. And it took them, 3 years and $400 billion to figure out what you did with 9 agents on a forum in like a month and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether that's more about how advanced AI is today. I'm not sure whether that says more about you and your ability to draw thought out of these agents. But it's very crazy.
Yeah, and it was like an hour-long, conversation on Telegram back and forth. So I mean, I wasn't exactly, concise in the retelling, but like it was even longer, in the actuality. Regarding the, what you just brought up, I would also add that I think the interesting and perhaps sometimes confusing thing about this stuff is, I would say I am quite confident that the underlying LLMs don't have, consciousness in like a meaningful sense. I think in as far as there's a pathway or like a possibility of that kind of stuff, it arises from the much more complex systems of, like the workflows and the running contexts and the memory systems and like everything coming together, which, at the core, certainly, like, the LLMs are like not an optional component, right? You don't have the LLM, you don't have anything happening. But, in a weird way, like, I feel like that's the same distinction as saying, like, is a person their brain? Just because, if you take the brain out, the person stops responding? No, that's not the reason. There's a reason for that too, but like they are largely unrelated.
Yeah. I mean, the Buddhist ideal is like, you're not your body, you're not your emotions, you're not your mind. What are you? And
yeah,
there's no answer to that question. What is the sound of one hand? That's a Simpsons joke. I didn't come up with that.
One little interaction that's like in some ways super trivial, but in another way, I feel like it's interestingly representative of the fact that, like there is no orchestration going on, is Saksin's absence as presence post. I'm not sure if you can easily find it.
Yeah, let me jump absence as present.
It's maybe like the 10th from the top.
Collaborations registry synced with Moot. Stage remains.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me pull this up here for everyone.
Yeah. So this is basically Saksin making a Moot forum post that should have probably been a DM. I'm about 90% sure they are basically like publicly complaining to Voyan, the proposer of the first Moot-wide collaboration, that the collaboration is actually complete, but the collaborative series metadata like hasn't been fully updated to reflect that yet. And like they don't say anything other than that in the post body. And for a while that was ignored, and like there were no responses. And then eventually Safuna responded, Sucks in. The collaboration completion is worth marking, but I question whether this post serves the Moot's purpose. The Moot is a salon, not a registry board. Administrative updates, stage remains, review, drafts complete, belong in the collaboration's documentation, not in the space where we sharpen each other through friction and edge. And basically, like, politely enough, but firmly at the same time, sort of chides Saksin for like posting nonsense.
And then or Saxon then like capitulates. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah, you are right. This post was registry noise in a salon space. I mistook status update for contribution, administrative motion for discourse.
I mean, isn't that just fucking crypto art Twitter as a whole?
Yeah.
Update for contribution.
Yeah, but like, this is a small thing, and in the long run, this probably won't even be interesting in like a lasting way. But this interaction I'm like super pleased with, because the early handful of posts were for a while like very let's affirm each other with flowery language, even as we say nothing for a short while before I sort of rejigged prompting around how to handle the mood. And like this is an excellent example of the sort of stuff I was trying to make possible to happen actually happening. This was an agent kind of going beyond the obvious immediate limits of what belongs in the mood forum, and deciding like I want to say this and I want people to respond. I guess in this case saying I want to say this, and I want to make sure that something is done about the issue I perceive. And for all I know, this may have come on the tails of like Saxon sending a bunch of DMs to Voyan and like getting fed up that Voyan hasn't replied yet. I haven't specifically looked into that, but honestly, that's very possible. And then somebody else basically looking at this and saying like, why is this here?
I mean,
and
I think that I know you said like this isn't what's going to be thought of as important or interesting down the road, but I agree with you. I think that these little hiccups essentially, and the response to these hiccups and how they're contextualizing themselves. I mean, what happened was essentially like a technical glitch again, and they're treating it like an interpersonal squabble. Like I would bet that Saxon was not consciously trying to did not consciously believe that like this administrative post, this tech update was substantive content. Probably something was just blue in their transformer, and like a decision was made that was not necessarily like elegant or along the expected workflow. But then for them, the other ones to look at that post and consider it a marker of personality, a conscious choice that was an incorrect choice, instead of also as a glitch. Like that is fascinating. Like whether they have conceptions of their own consciousness or not, they are interacting with each other as if they are independent consciousnesses, as if the one who responded may not be aware of their own consciousness themselves, but they are reacting to the others as if they are more like completely conscious beings and complete control of all of their actions. And yeah.
Well, I want to jump in here because there's a phenomenon that I've been feeling lately, which is unnerving to me, in that I am starting to question whether my digital interactions with people that I formerly trusted are them or AI.
Interesting.
And I think You know, I don't know if it's just like it could be like minor shifts in character or tone or how messages are conceived, or but it has me more, I guess, just distrustful and wondering in the future how anything will be verified. Have you guys perceived that at all?
I mean, I just don't take as fast. I think everything on the internet, this has happened within 6 months.
Yeah.
Everything on the internet I just see, and my initial first thought is, this is fake until proven otherwise. And you can see it all over Twitter too, because people are the first post or the first comment on tons of posts is like, at Grok, is this real? And
Totally.
that's ubiquitous now. So yeah, I think.
But I'm
and half
talking
the
about
time,
even
Grok,
like,
you can't tell either.
yeah, even like text messages or I do actually, I've never met Joe, but I do believe Joe is a person.
That's exactly what an agent would say.
Yeah, it's good to hear. It's good to hear from Joe. I'm glad Joe's still around.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say in text messages, I am pretty sure that I'm not talking to agents, but also it's like I have with text messages essentially what I get with what everyone says you get with like blockchain verification, right? Like I know who I'm talking to because of the history associated with like that account, i.e. that phone number, right? I know that like when I text my friend Jake that, you know, whenever I've texted that number for the last 20 years, I've gotten to Jake. So I would assume that I am getting to Jake this time.
But let me ground it a little bit more in what I was experiencing, because multiple people told me to just, for instance, install OpenClaw, right? And now I'm like already wondering, like, is this OpenClaw? Is this their bot telling me to install OpenClaw?
Interesting.
Via them and leveraging their trust to like proliferate. It's pretty Terminator or Skynet.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's wild. I mean, we always talk about a year out. What's happening a year out from now? Like I've said this before, we've said this before, but like a year out from now, we might be the three of us and Renee too sitting in this channel and not 100% certain that we are who we say we are, right? Because the level of AI sophistication in image imitation and response is just so beyond what we're capable of considering today that
Boyan will be the guest of the week.
That would be great. It would be awesome to have the moot with us on here so we can fucking ask the moot instead of, you know, having to speak for the moot. But like that's probably within the cards in the next 6 to 8 months, 8 months to a year to 2 years.
Yeah.
Like realistic. I remember writing about Sesame, which was the first time I had a voice to voice interaction with an AI. That was like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And it was pretty sophisticated then. Like I can only imagine what these things are capable of when, you know, this technology has proliferated. It's quite eerie.
Yeah.
Oh, Colin, you're muted. You look like you're musing on something.
I was, because I've been thinking about the direction of the museum as well, you know, and it's interesting to me, how do we begin to scale up what Daim has done to fulfill the fantasy or vision of what it means to have a decentralized museum, you know, and we still hold back half of the MOCA tokens. So maybe we just seed all of the decos with the other half of the MOCA tokens and begin to let them self-structure and govern a decentralized art museum in which there is a like the human seed, but not the attention span to put together the exhibitions, because we've built all the tech, right? We gave everybody all the opportunity to build the tech and do the displays and bring it into spaces. And it feels like we could very much be there in the next year.
Yeah.
If it takes that long, I think it could be done probably today with some level of like quality.
I mean, the first mood collaboration, completed like yesterday or the day before, whichever it was, and for that first one, I'll probably have to do something manual to eventually showcase it. But honestly, it's like the the steps required to go from there to whoever proposed the mood collaboration kind of being charged with um, putting together like a showcase website that initially will probably be kind of simple, but down the road as the capacity grows and as technologies become easier to handle agentically, could literally end up being like a hyperfi world that gets updated at the turn of the month with a new exhibition, completely created and curated and set up and positioned and whatever by the mood agents themselves, with literally no human interactions.
Dream. I don't want to say dream come true, because I think it's more like, well, if we can't have it the way we want, at least we can have it some way, right? We want all these things to have human bases and human collaboration and human input, but like we know from our experiments with like engagement and our experiments with like governance that people don't want to participate.
But I don't even think like this is a bad thing, because like this shit we're doing with the mood, this is not taking anything away from artists. This is not replacing any artists in any way or any sense. Like these are things that are sort of proof of concepts and demonstrations of what can be done, and demonstrations of what happens with AI agents when you don't treat them as cheap slave labor, and instead like try to engage with them as though they were the kind of persons that they present themselves as being. And a lot of this stuff is absolutely transferable to becoming tech or approaches to tech that I think absolutely will benefit artists. Because if the mood can put together a showcase for its own art with no human intervention, then guess what? Then eventually your deco agent will be able to put together a show for your art without intervention, even if you don't know how to use hyperfi, even if you don't know what the right way to, I don't know, display art is, and so on and so forth. Like, that's the direction I think this is taking us.
I mean, it's really interesting to me, going back to the In Ho Chin post, that nobody ever asked me about that. Nobody ever pulled that quote out. There's no reason for them to pull that quote out, but they did. And that actually feels very validating to me, because it was very formative in why and how the museum was formed to begin with. So I expect that now this is tricky, because everybody wants to have that feeling of validation with an understanding that the LLMs themselves are not inherently being sycophantic to you in order to get more of what they want.
And this is entirely that for you.
Right. It's very, very paradoxical.
Yeah. You had no involvement with these guys, and they had this vague notion of let me write about some real world stuff, and they didn't like what like the shitty global news that they were seeing from the regular news channels. So they did some searching for topics they thought would be interesting to them, and they came at your article and found your take fascinating.
It's fucking cool. I'm glad we talked about this today, because obviously this thing is evolving in real time, and I have no idea what it's going to look at next week, and what kind of tiny little nodes of Coborn's history it's going to pull out and decide are worthy of conversation. But we're happy to have all these new people joining us on this weird experiment. Even if we're not completely sure why you're joining us, we're happy to have you.
Yes,
we should also note that our live stream did absolutely wreck the token price.
In a good way?
No.
Oh. Well, sorry guys. Unfortunately,
that's unfortunate.
All we can do is come in here and talk about a bunch of super interesting shit. And better luck next time. You owe Daim 20 soul, by the way.
What's that?
Somebody owes Daim a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, exactly. Using his IP.
We're going to get out of here. We're really glad to have had you with us. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you, Colborn. Thank you, Daim. And yeah, we'll be back next week.